my name is Christy Kate, and welcome to Inside the Voice Actors Booth. Today with me, I have Joe Hernandez. You might know him from The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, a few anime, and even Kingdom Hearts. Today, our episode is sponsored by Soundbox Studio Group. They have a couple of studios in Los Angeles and even one in Colorado. Their head, Tim Friedlander, is a wondrous person for the voiceover community. He helps out with so many different projects, and if you need something done, you should hit up Soundbox Studio LA, whether it's actor services or professional recordings, and you need to book a session. So with me, I have Joe today. How are you doing, Joe?
Doing pretty good. Made the drive up here to LA, loving it. Got my coffee in me, so I'm ready to go.
Awesome. So I like to start out this show by kind of asking, how did you get into acting? When you were a child, were you always wanting to be a voice actor, or did you have other aspirations?
I always wanted to be a performer in some capacity, but I didn't know exactly where or what that outlet would be necessarily. Like a lot of voiceover people, I probably spent way too much time in front of the television watching cartoons and playing video games. I'm not going to say that I was like a latchkey kid, but like I said, I watched a lot of cartoons and stuff.
Did you have
that.
like a favorite show that was kind of like your anchor?
Oh my God. I mean, you name them, Animaniacs, Rocko's Modern Life, DuckTales. I mean, that whole era of like the Disney afternoon lineup and the Fox Kids, like it was just, I devoured it. So
it sounds like more of like the quirky characters and
definitely. I mean, I grew up and I would emulate all those voices, and I grew up just I soaked it up like a sponge. And, that kind of led to my love of performing. Even at an early age, I would do a lot of plays and everything. And in high school, very heavily involved in my theater program in high school, and went to Cal State Fullerton, where I majored in theater arts, got my bachelor's from over there, graduated. But while I was starting off in our theater program, I think I might have been like a freshman or a sophomore in college.
Mm-hmm.
Cal State Fullerton is located in Orange County.
Well, it's a very prestigious acting school around here,
It
too.
is. It's a
as well
really,
as film.
yeah. I mean, I had the grades to go to UCLA. Like I had it all set up. Unfortunately, UCLA is very, very expensive, so I didn't have the money for it.
It's like $40,000 a year.
It's insane.
Back then, I say.
Yeah.
I think it's even more now.
Yeah, no. And so like Cal State Fullerton, I had some like, student grants and, all that stuff. So I was able to do it and do it affordably.
Well, and you're from Orange County area too, so it was probably less of an expense to have to, move somewhere.
I mean, grew up locally here in West Covina, so like, it's still kind of close by to family and friends and everything. So it was great for what it was. And their, Fullerton's theater program is like one of the top 15 in the nation. So what I was going there for was I knew I was going to get something quality. And what was awesome about it was, I was just there, like I said, freshman starting off, and somebody says, "Hey, there's these auditions that are coming along over at Disneyland," and college student, you need a job to kind of make it through. And they were these auditions for these shows, Turtle Talk with Crush, Talk to Stitch, and so I ended up getting those jobs and been doing them for the past 15 years. Doing character voices at the theme park. And that was really kind of my gateway into voiceover. And it was a wonderful time, to be a student, a theater student, and then have, learn all these things in the classroom and being able to immediately apply them to what I was doing at that professional level at the theme park, which is awesome.
Well, and that job is challenging too, because there's also an improv element involved as well.
Yes. I mean, so you're doing voice matching, you're puppeteering, you're like you said, the improv. So you're juggling a lot of things. But what I love about it is like that's sort of my training. A lot of voice actors, they'll do Groundlings, they'll do Second City, they'll do, whatever, UCB, whatever they can come across. Yeah. And that's their training. This was my ground. And one of the things that I discovered very early on is like, nobody has the exact same journey in voiceover. Everybody comes from a different path. And there's no one set standard way. Yes. And what's great about it, and I'm sure you know, is that what you bring with you along the journey, that affects your work. And I mean that in a positive way.
Yeah.
You take those experiences, you take those lifelong lessons that you have with you, and you apply them to your work.
So was these lessons something that you would learn maybe in theater school, like from like a specific acting type method, or are you like a method actor where you like apply a life situation and kind of that's you, or are you like how would you say would be your acting method for this?
I don't know if I'm necessarily method, but I do take myself pretty seriously when it comes to my work. Um, did a lot of Shakespeare in college, and really that time at Cal State Fullerton was an opportunity for me to learn how to be a professional, learn the way of going about your business and how not to go about your business. And you do it, you take your lumps sometimes. Sometimes you get your acting teacher yells at you or throws things at you or whatever, but it makes you better.
Yeah.
And what I learned very quickly, coming out of high school, I was kind of like the big theater guy in high school. Now I'm at the college level, and I'm no longer a big fish in a small pond. You are there with people that have a wide range of experience levels. And so, you've got to rise to the occasion, and you got to do it. And it's great because you can learn just as much from the people that are in the classroom with you to your left and right as you can from your instructor.
Yes. Now in voiceover, it's totally opposite with that typically because you're just in a booth by yourself and you don't have other actors to play off of. How do you find the ways to overcome that and give the best performance without having someone to play off with?
It takes time. It takes time. I listened to some of the auditions and things that I did when I first started off, and oh God, I cringe.
When did you listen to these? Recently?
You just go back every once in a while.
Every once
just
in a
like
while?
I have them all on my hard drive, and you just go back every once in a while.
I know I've stumbled upon a few of mine on occasion.
Or there'll be times where there'll be a casting director that you meet, and they're like, oh hey, I remember you from this audition. I did a workshop with Ivy Eisenberg probably about 2 or 3 months ago, and in the workshop, she played everybody's auditions that they had sent her like over the years.
Wow.
Like she has a database of like everybody.
That's really cool,
and
though.
It's very cool, but it's also
kind of, yeah.
It's like, ooh, there's some cringe in there. It's like, ooh, and again, you're doing it like in this setting where it's like, oh gosh, I feel so vulnerable, and you're listening to auditions that were done in some cases, 3-4 years ago. It's like, well. And you can also listen to the stuff that you submitted, 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it's an opportunity to listen to the growth and all that. And
Did she acknowledge that? Is that
the
point of the exercise was saying,
absolutely.
hey, listen to how you sounded then and listen to how you sound now. And then I'm assuming when she listened to you now and you sounded good, she would say, I would hire you now versus then or something.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things where, she's like, I loved what you did here. I loved what you did there. And it's great. It's that classroom setting was an opportunity to really learn from a casting director, hands-on, and build you up and know where you're going. I acknowledge I have a lot of good habits. I also have a lot of bad habits. And so, those classroom settings are where you kind of have to iron out some of the wrinkles and accentuate what you're doing right.
Do you mind me asking what your bad habits would be?
It's tough. I would say sometimes I could be a little too sing-songy, which depending on the medium works really well.
Yeah.
And other mediums, not so much.
Interesting.
So again,
and like video games, I wouldn't say sing-songy, but maybe in like animation or something, it might play to it better.
And again, as an actor, you have to approach it from a certain mentality of, okay, I'm working on an anime today. I'm doing a commercial. And even within, the different genres of commercials and video games and anime, there are like little just nuances and different directions that you can take them even within those mediums, to like very minimal, very cinematic, very grounded, very gritty to, just over the top, cartoony, larger than life, and that's where the process comes in of talking with, your director. You got to be in constant communication as far as like kind of figuring out where your character may or may not live.
Yeah.
And that's a great basis of starting, and always just kind of checking in with them, throughout a session. Hey, are we still living in that area? And they'll set you straight.
So it sounds like a lot of the times when you do get an audition for a character, you first think of, well, what is the medium? And then from there, do you think about the world that it is? Or what does it look like for you when you get, like, say, a commercial audition versus a video game versus, like, an over-the-top animation? How do you break down the copy?
With commercials, yeah, I mean, you look at the product. You look at the brand. You kind of have to think of like recent campaigns that they've done. You have to look at Coke a little bit different than Pepsi. You have to approach Starbucks a little bit different than you would Apple, or so on and so forth, and really kind of try to tap into what their brand is, and like who are they trying to direct their commercials or their ads to, and try to fit into that realm. And it's very possible that they could be trying to do something that gets away from whatever that current.
But they usually tell you if
Usually,
that's the case.
but again, it's just, hey, it's as simple as doing your homework. Sometimes it means, taking 10, 15 minutes looking at, YouTube commercials and clips and all that, and kind of really getting a sense of what the company, what the product is, what they're about, what their demographics are. So again, it's that's doing your homework. That's just being a good student.
So then for, like, I'd say anime and like video games commercials, do you also like try to look up and see what the show is, if possible, and stuff like that, to kind of get an idea of the world?
Definitely. I mean, there are certain animes that are like very subtle, very nuanced, like I said, very grounded, very, very cinematic in their approach.
Or modern.
Or modern, and the one of the animes that I've just recently done was JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yeah.
And those characters are like just blown up, larger than life.
Very broad.
Yeah, and it's like very action oriented, and it's like just, again, like
Jokes.
over the top, larger than life. And then, the character that I play is like kind of a goofball in that realm, where you have these guys that are, again, just really buff, macho, really strong. They do all these cool moves and everything, and they have their powers and stuff like that. And my guy's kind of, again, just goofy looking. He's got like a turnip pineapple head, and so you want to make sure that the voice reflects that. That it matches physically. And again, you just want to make sure that you fit into the world, into the realm of what you're doing as seamless as possible.
And typically with that casting house, they send the clips of the show for you too. So is that something that you were able to look at with that, or did they just direct book you based off like other work?
Just direct book me.
Okay.
And
but
again,
they knew because I've worked with them before.
Yeah, and when you've been doing it for a couple of years, sometimes they have an idea. Okay, we know his range. We know where we can go with this person. We know, that this person is directable, and that's one of the big things for voice actors is you have to be able to adapt and take direction. Sometimes your gut instinct is the right one.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not, though, and that's okay.
As long as you make a choice.
As long as you make a choice, and as long as the director sees that if they give you something that you can go there, and so it was a collaborative process on JoJo's, working with Tony Oliver, where he would, we would kind of just play with the voice a little bit, and again, you just kind of see where you go with it, and I love what we did.
So with directing, if you're ever not on the same page with the director, how do you kind of change that scenario in the room so that you aren't feeling bad about yourself and you're being able to communicate with the director what they're wanting, in a sense? Like,
it's definitely tough. I had a session on a video game. I'm not going to say which one, but this was earlier last year, and the director was a relatively new director. I don't know how many sessions he's done, and I've worked with him once or twice since then. But it was a very like physical or like vocally strenuous kind of a session, and a lot of like just really throat ripping kind of a thing. And
You have to protect your voice.
You have to protect your voice.
So,
So at a certain
yeah.
point, you kind of have to draw the line and say, hey, you know, I, constantly check in with them just as much as they check in with you. Hey, this is starting to give. Maybe we take 5. Maybe can I get some tea? Can I, give me some water? Let's, So you kind of have to let them know, because ultimately, with respects to your voice, over the course of a 2 or 4 hour session, especially when you're doing these efforts that are like, again, just really just shredding your voice, there's only so much that you can do.
Do you ever worry about losing your voice, or have you
Absolutely.
lost it?
Absolutely. I didn't lose it, but I had a little bit of
Scare?
a little bit of a scare earlier last year, where I had started to started to give out and all that stuff, and I was off for probably about a week. And it's crazy, man. And I try to keep up.
Did you go to like an ENT for it, or?
I went to the doctors,
Okay.
and he was going to prescribe some some hormones, but he's like, you know what? I don't want to do that. Let's just wait it out for a week.
So you probably couldn't speak for a week or something. It was vocal
Yeah,
rest?
I mean, it was one of those things where it didn't hurt, but you just sound, like a chain smoker, where you just, and it's like, I swear to God, like I don't smoke, I don't do, stuff like that. So
that must have been challenging, not being able to audition for a week, not being able to take jobs, not being able to go to your regular job.
Torture. I mean, because physically you're able, like mentally you're good, you're healthy, but your voice is your instrument. You gotta protect it. So constantly drinking water, drinking tea, staying hydrated, taking care of your voice, and again, just constantly checking in with yourself.
And telling the director, hey.
Absolutely. And one of the things I love, I had another session just last month where, instead of doing like, a 4-hour, effort session, we divvied up it into like two-hour sessions, like over the course of 2 days, which was great.
Nice.
And the client was like, they're up in Canada, and they're like just constantly checking in. Hey, how are you feeling? Do you want to take a break? Do you want to take 5? Do you want to, and it was, I loved it that they were more protective of my voice than I was.
Nice.
And that was a relief that, again, vocal health is important, not just to the voice actor, but also to the directors and the studios, that make all this stuff happen.
Well, and it's funny because I know that during the voice actor strike, one of the huge things that was a contention was vocal health.
Yeah.
And at the time, that's actually how you were able to get into Zelda, because they were looking specifically for non-union talent, and you fit the bill perfectly. Do you mind kind of speaking a bit about that process? About
auditioning? I was non-union at the time.
It was definitely the right place in the right time, but I also feel like you were perfect for the part. Like, Daruk's protection is totally you, and Yonobo is like your natural voice, and it's just...
Yeah, it was a lot of fun doing it. Again, I had no idea what we were auditioning for.
Yeah.
And as an actor, you get the audition sides and everything, and you see Nintendo like up at the top head is like, okay, proper. So you have an idea of like what company it's for, but nothing's really been announced.
Yeah.
And you look at the script and you kind of, like I said, you do your homework. You try to dissect what world are we living in, because obviously it was like a fantasy, almost Lord of the Rings-esque kind of an environment that it was set in. And so my thought is it Fire Emblem? You try and think of like what sort of like, Nintendo properties are there.
Zelda didn't have voice acting.
No, they didn't. And Nintendo's very like protective of their
IP,
properties, and I get it. I completely understand. And when you look at the business and the way that things are now, everything has voice acting. Everything.
Oh, yeah.
And so Nintendo is like, they're sort of like dipping their toe in the pool, so to speak, with Breath of the Wild. And, going and like looking at the script, I'm looking for things that say Zelda, Link, Hyrule,
And they don't have
Ganon.
that.
It's none of it. And talking with the director afterwards, he said, no, we scrubbed all that stuff. We don't want anybody to know. We don't want anything to leak. And I get it. I completely understand that part. So again, you're not flying entirely blind, but you just have to work with the parameters that you were given. And there was this one character, I remember the side read for Hannibal. That was the character's name. Would end up being Daruk.
Okay.
But
that would throw me off because
yeah,
Hannibal, you think Hannibal Lecter,
well,
and
just
that is not your character.
and again, like the the sides and the way it was broken down was like he was like this big sort of barbarian, again, kind of Lord of the Rings, but there was like a playful, lovable side to him.
Mm,
So again, you just try to go off of what you're given.
yeah.
If he had said, it's a Goron or something like that, then you respond a little bit differently to that.
Yeah.
But and so you just kind of get this picture in your head of what the character looks like, and you just try to honor, that voice as much as possible. Very big, bolsterous, larger than life kind of guy. And just great job, little guy. And you just add in those little layers, and again, with Yunobo, the director was just like, I want to hear somebody that's like very awkward and young and very nervous, and
Yeah.
and I was like, I can do that. And so you just kind of go a little bit nervous and a little crazy and a little neurotic a little bit, with the way that he, unsure of himself. And you just try to tap into those qualities. And, again, you don't know what it's going to come out to, what the final product is going to be. So, that we did the callbacks, I want to say in like 2016, I want to say it was like February, March or something like that.
Was this
And
something that you had gotten through your agent, or was this through referrals from people that
just
you knew?
just through referrals, through,
Connections you
connections
made? That's
and
amazing.
everything. And it was great. And we this is like, kind of like I said, early 2016. And, you do the callback and that's great. Nothing. Like, you just don't hear anything.
Yeah.
And again, the director was like, "Hey, they loved you. They're sending it all the way up to everybody at Nintendo. They love you. They're great. You're awesome. But you're just not hearing anything."
How long did it take to find out?
We didn't start recording for probably, I want to say, about another 6 months or so.
So
Yeah.
you didn't even know you booked it for another 6 months after auditioning?
It was weird because they were like, we love you. We think you got it. Like, they're not.
So they kind of kept you in the loop a little bit, but it was
A
almost like
little
dangling a
bit,
carrot because you
but-
didn't know if it was confirmed
Well,
or
and
not.
you know how these things are, where you do it, and it's all well and good, and everything's, but
But you still didn't even know what it was
you
either.
don't even know what it was.
So,
and
yeah.
and the proof is in the pudding, because it's like, hey, 6 months is a long time to go between
Initial-
doing the auditions and callbacks to the first session. And again,
Yeah.
you don't know until it actually materializes.
That does seem atypical, right? 6
Oh,
months?
oh,
Yeah.
that's so foreign in the world of voiceover, because you know how it is. You audition for something on a Tuesday, you could be working on it that Thursday or Friday,
Or even the next day.
or even the next day.
Or even that afternoon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, and I get it, time is money.
Mhm.
We gotta get on it. It's kind of one of those hurry up and wait industries.
Yeah.
So you do it, and that's that. And I come in, like I said, 6 months later or so, and hey, we're finally doing it. Cool, awesome. And the director says, we're working on Zelda.
Did you start crying? I know I
It
would.
it was a moment. It was definitely one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, like, oh crap. Like,
Did you start freaking out because of the fan base?
you definitely have a moment of, and
Pinch me, pinch me.
and then it sets in where it's like, oh man, I better not suck.
Aw.
Like, I got to deliver the goods.
Yeah.
And so what was great about it, and everybody, they flew in people from Seattle, from Nintendo, and they were there, and producers and writers and all that stuff, and we're just working on it, and
Were you nervous?
I was incredibly nervous.
How do you get over the nerves?
You just do it.
Yeah.
You just do it. You don't have time to be nervous.
Yeah.
Now, what I will say is that I'm probably my own worst critic.
Okay.
So, you're recording takes, you're doing it, and they're, the guys on the other side of the booth on the window, we're loving it, you're doing awesome, but what comes with a franchise like this, just of your own personal work and your integrity, and you want to be able to deliver the goods.
Do you have to shut off your voice then, or do you actually say to the director, "Hey, can I try that again?" What do you? What do you suggest?
Definitely.
Because I've heard different opinions on that. Like sometimes they say, "Hey, can I do it a different way?" Then it's sort of like, "Oh, you're stepping on the director's foot." But then other times I've heard, "Hey, I did it a different way, and that's exactly what they wanted." Do you have like a strong
it's
opinion on
definitely
that?
a back and forth where you say, you know what, I feel like I got one more. Let me iron out that wrinkle. Let me get this one right.
Nice.
And again, everybody's pulling for you.
Yeah.
Everybody
That's good.
wants to put the best product out there as much as possible. And one of the things that I loved about Nintendo is, with respects to the amount of time that we had to record, they definitely gave us a lot of time.
Oh, that's good.
Sometimes with projects, and again, crank it out, just crank it out, just do it, just mow through it.
Mm-hmm.
This one, we were allowed to play. We were allowed to discover things. There was that, we had time to kind of let things simmer and sink our teeth into it.
Nice.
So that's one thing that I really appreciated. And I think everybody realized the magnitude of what we were working on. So, why wouldn't you want to take as much time to put your best foot forward?
Absolutely.
And I remember days, when we were done recording, where it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're doing this. I would go back to my car and just have a moment where it's like, what is life? What are we doing right now? Like, I can't believe this.
What was the feeling like when the game actually released?
Again, just very,
incredulous?
very surreal.
Yeah.
It's because I think the game came out, about a year later and all that stuff, and
Yeah.
so you just don't know how to react. And it's a launch title. They're launching the Switch with it, and so it's like, oh my gosh, the day is finally here, and you celebrate, and you have your cake and punch, and you have your party, and everybody pats each other on the back, and hugs and warm loves and kisses, and all that fun stuff.
Were you watching reviews of the game and like trying to figure out if people were commenting on the voice acting, or were you looking at comments online, or did you try to avoid it?
A little bit. You sometimes you come across things. Sometimes people will tweet at you. Love. They'll tweet at you hate. It's just it's everything.
How do you deal with people sending you hate?
You gotta take the good with the bad.
Yeah.
You take the good with the bad.
That's good.
You
don't focus on it.
Absolutely. You can't dive too much in either direction with respects to the love or the hate.
Mm-hmm.
All you can do is, just like I said, put your best foot forward to your work, and let your work and everything that you do speak for itself.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of what we did. And again, the game comes out and everybody's happy. You pat yourself on the back, and then the next Monday rolls around.
And you're like, what am I doing?
I was like, I got to go back to work. That's what it is. I got to go back to work. I got to go back, and you have your moment.
Yeah.
I got to go back and work on the next project.
Got you.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
But it was funny, with everything with respects to like NDA and being very secretive and everything about it. I had seen some of the other members of the cast, just in passing in the studio, and the director would introduce us. Hey, this is Patricia. Hey, this is Elizabeth. Hey, so you see some people, but you don't know how many people are in the cast. You don't know everything else and all that stuff.
You probably don't even know the whole story either.
Not entirely. I mean, again, they want to keep things from leaking out, so it's very fragmented, as far as what they tell you. And I get it. It's okay, and the director is there, Jamie Mortellaro, who, again, love him.
He's a legend.
His resume speaks for itself. And Jamie's always been really good with respects to giving context and giving you that backstory and like filling in all of the blanks as far as, where to go with your performance. So that was never an issue in the booth for me. But what I did find that was really funny is, again, like 3 days before the game is set to release, there's a little email thread that goes out between, like some of the cast and the director and, all that. And it's like, hey guys, just want to let you know, we're getting ready, really excited, looking forward to it, all that other stuff. And I see a name on there, and I see Bill Rogers. And it's like, wait a second, I know that guy. And so I'm friends with Bill Rogers ever since he moved out here to LA. You know, I'm, you know, we hang out, we get lunch, we get coffee and all that stuff all the time. We were both working on the same project.
And you had no idea.
We had no idea.
And you couldn't talk about it.
We couldn't talk about it. So again, it's one of
so
that
you'd
like
be having coffee. You'd both be like, "Oh, I have a session later today," and
Yeah.
it's the same project,
Yeah.
and you have no idea.
but it's the total like Clark Kent Superman sort of dynamic where it's like, you know, you got to honor the NDA, you got to respect it, and so you know you don't tell a soul.
Yeah.
And you just live your life and you go about your business, and that's that. And like I said, when the game is announced or whatever project it is that you do, then you could have your moment and, you know, yay, you pop some champagne or you know, like I said, have some cheese and crackers or whatever. And that's that.
Yeah.
And again, Monday morning rolls around, got to go back to work.
Yep.
And that's sort of the cycle of it all.
Now, back to work, it can be two things for you. It could be either Turtle Talk with Crush, or it could be an actual session.
Or both.
Now, with Turtle Talk with Crush, I find it kind of interesting. It looks like one of the first roles that you ever booked was a thing called Deep, and that's also a sea creature. What was that like? How did you get into Deep?
There's a casting director, Ned Lott, who used to work for Disney Character Voices, I found out later, which I guess, like, I've worked with him indirectly at Turtle Talk, but I didn't know it because, again, he was Disney Character Voices, and some of those guys had to sign off on us before we started doing Turtle Talk. So it's kind of funny how everything kind of comes full circle. Ned, who, you know, is no longer working with Disney full time. I think he still does like some freelance stuff here and there. But again, I did a workshop with him. I can't even remember how many years ago. But he gave us sides, you know, to read from Deep. He's like, hey, I'm working on this project. A lot of these roles have already been cast.
Yeah.
But you know, hey, we're just here. It's a workshop. Let's just let's just do it. Let's just riff. Let's just see where we go. See what we do. And he gave me this one character. And again, you know, he's like, everything's been cast and all that stuff. And I just went with what, you know, I felt was right, and it was fun.
Do you think him saying everything's been cast kind of just got it out of your head, so you weren't like, I need to book this? I'm so like
1,000%.
That was very clever.
Because you don't care.
You don't care.
You don't
You're
care.
Just like, this is just for fun.
Yeah, I'm just doing it just to play, just to have fun, just to do it.
Yeah.
And it was great. I mean, everybody everybody was like, oh my God, that was awesome. It was fun, really cool. And so, you know, you do the class and you do the workshop, and again, you know, everybody goes their separate ways and all that stuff. And probably about a week and a half later, I get a phone call from Ned saying, hey, we originally had a celebrity voice lined up for that character that you read. We want to go with you.
Wow.
Which was,
that's usually the opposite.
It's usually opposite. I mean, if you know the business.
Yeah.
You know, celebrities are, you know, in anything animated these days. And so, you know, it's always great to kind of get a win for, like, you know, the working voice actor as it was. So it was a great experience working on it.
That's so cool.
You know, I stretched myself. Again, I was still very brand new, you know, kind of starting off at that time.
Is that technically your first IMDb credit, or did you do a couple of things?
No, I did a couple of other little things before that, but Deep was like a big one. That was a big one.
Yeah.
You know, again, my character sang and danced and did all that stuff. And again, there's like video of it. It's probably on the DVD somewhere where, you know, they have me in the booth singing and dancing, and they say where they're going to animate to it and all that stuff. It was like, oh my gosh, this is, you know, freaking awesome. You know, it's really, really cool.
Was singing something that you'd kind of done before that role, or?
I'm not a singer. I'm so not a singer. I'm so not a singer.
So how did you mentally prepare for that then, to sing? Were you like taking vocal lessons?
No. The way Ned approached it, because he knows that he loves singing, but I'm not a natural singer, and like I said, I'm my own worst critic when it comes to stuff like that.
Oh, same.
The way he approached it, he said, you know, if you don't feel comfortable about it, we can get someone to do the singing for you, which I was like, okay, that's cool.
That's nice they gave you that choice. So you didn't have to.
Yes, and it took a lot of pressure off of me.
Yeah.
And the way I sort of framed it for Ned was like, look, I'll do the singing for my character. I'll do it in the session. If you like it, keep it. If you want to bring in a professional singer, believe me, my feelings won't be hurt in the slightest. And again, I feel like that's a healthy approach.
It is. And it's probably good for singing in and of itself, because the few vocal lessons I've taken, they've always talked about the intention behind the singing, just like with acting and voice acting.
Yeah.
And if you're worried about being pitch perfect and like, how am I singing, it's probably not going to come across the way it should, right?
I know that I'm not a professional singer. I'll leave it to the professionals. And that's kind of always been my policy. If you like it, keep it. If not, that's okay too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, you're also in Kingdom Hearts as additional voices.
Yes.
Do you know specifically who or what you are in that game?
I am a quest giver, I believe. I think you could hear me in Olympia, Corona, Arendelle, Port Royal, and San Francisco.
Okay.
And so I'm, in there like during some of the cutscenes, and like I said, I'm a quest giver and all that stuff. You want to talk about a short turnaround?
Okay.
With respect to like getting that. I got that phone call, I want to say on like a Friday afternoon at 5 in the morning. Can you come in Monday morning?
Yeah.
And
it's crazy.
And it's crazy. And it's Kingdom Hearts, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I will. Yeah, of
You're like,
course.
I will be there no matter what.
Yeah, like we're doing this. This is happening. So, I mean, it's just so awesome to be attached to such an amazing and beloved franchise, and they got the new DLC that just came out, a couple of days ago. So, it's awesome. Yeah.
Do you have any other projects in mind where it's like, this would be my dream? Like, you're like, my ultimate goal in voiceover is to...
Oh, God. I'd love to work on a more regular series, like kind of, and I've worked on a couple of like animated series before, kind of just like as like a part-time player.
Yeah.
Barbie Dreamhouse Adventures, like they have the new season that come in, and I play a character named Vlad, who's like a Russian bad guy. Yeah, who would have thought? But I mean, and you kind of do a couple of episodes here or there. But what was interesting about that is like, that cast had already been together for like 2 or 3 seasons when I come in. So like they know each other, and like, not that you're like an outsider, but it's like, hey guys, I'm just coming in here for an episode or 2. Let me just, don't mind me.
Yeah.
So there's that. But I would love to work on something a little bit more regularly.
Be an actual series regular.
Yeah.
And you'd say like animation would be your ultimate goal then, or you're open to anything?
Open to anything. But,
Yeah.
Animation is the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Video games, animation, that's fun. It's just fun.
Yeah. Who did you coach with for animation? Because I know you did all this theater training, and theater is way different than animation. Just, theater, in my opinion. So how did you kind of get more into like the animation field?
Completely different beast, yeah. I started, like, some of the very first animation classes that I took were with Bob Bergen.
Okay.
Bob Bergen. And
he's a legend.
He's a legend, voice of Porky Pig. That's a great foundation to have right there. He's one of the best, animation teachers that you will find in town.
Well, and he's very much into marketing, so I'm sure, because, we talked about you getting into Zelda by just people that you've met, and it sounds like his class also kind of helps with that too.
Yeah,
probably.
I mean, he definitely, it's an 8-week class, and he really tries to give you a sense of not only how to conduct business inside the booth, but how to conduct yourself and carry yourself outside. And that's one of the things that I appreciate.
Yeah.
As cliche or as cheesy as it is to sound, he doesn't just care about you as a performer. He cares about you as a person.
Which is good.
Which is really good. And again, I realize how cheesy that sounds. Richard Horvitz, who we both studied under, very much the same way.
Oh yeah.
And those are 2 of my favorite animation teachers.
Well, his mantra, I am enough because I am a human being. I'm like, yeah, that actually works.
No, and it's a great starting point. And what I loved about Richard's class was, he has his steps.
And do you still use that for your auditions?
I try to, again, like sometimes you get lost, or sometimes it's like, oh, why is something not working? And you can go back and you can look at the list, and it's like, oh, it probably wasn't working because I wasn't doing this right, or I wasn't doing that right. And so it's great to have that, like, just constant, like, check-in of why is something working or not working.
Yeah. Well, and I think, his list is really great. I highly recommend that class.
Yes.
I don't want to give away his list because I feel like that's spoiling a wonderful class. Do you have any like final words that you kind of wanted to speak about, whether it's how to get into the career into a career like this in this day and age versus, how it was back then. Because I know the landscape has changed a lot. I mean, even within the last few years, like Voice Bank has
Oh my God.
shifted everything. Do you have any advice for anybody
It is super, super hard, super competitive, getting into voiceover even now versus when I started, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's getting started is probably the hardest part on your voiceover journey. Because it's not exactly like anybody gives you like a roadmap. Nobody says, hey, this is how you do it. And really, for the first 2 or 3 years of my voiceover career, my journey, I was doing things so backwards. I was so lost.
Like what?
I would do a lot of like the, meet the pros nights, meet the agent nights, and I would do those classes, and it would be great. And again, you have these great experiences, and you learn a lot. Sometimes the directors the directors would be like, "Hey, can I hear your demo?"
Oh, and you didn't have one.
I don't have a demo.
Oh.
What's your website? Website.
Mm.
Who's your agent? Didn't have an agent. So very quickly, I kind of realized I needed to kind of like hit the reset button and start over. And I remember what changed for me. It was kind of when I finally got serious about like doing my demo. I sat down with my dear friend Laura Post,
Oh,
who
she's great.
I love her. She's just a mountain of knowledge and
Super
just
talented.
just everything.
Yes.
And we sat down over coffee, and I probably picked her brain for a good 50 minutes. And I realized that I was, like I said, doing things so wrong. It's not exactly like they give you a map.
No.
I was kind of going like, I think the natural progression of things should be A, B, C, D, E. I was doing like A, X, Y, J, F, C. It was kind of all over the place. Again, I didn't have that direction. And so sitting down with Laura, I was able to kind of get a sense of, oh, okay, this is how it goes. This is the steps. So,
She was like a mentor to you.
a little bit, and I don't want to saddle anybody with that title because
It's but no, I feel like she would be honored.
yeah, the mentor title is just like, because I hear it get thrown around sometimes, and it's like there are a couple people that I could like say that person was like a mentor to me, and I almost don't want to saddle anybody with that title because I like
You can honor them by saying they helped you out a lot.
Absolutely,
with figuring
absolutely.
out this roadmap.
And I realized, you study, you take your classes, you do your intro classes, you do your commercial classes, you do your animation classes, you study. And and again, who knows, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, however long, you only really know when it's time to make that jump.
Yeah.
And, you kind of have to get a feel for, is it time to do that demo? Is it time to do it? And you know what? You maybe take 1 or 2 more classes.
Did you have like a first demo that didn't get you anywhere, or did you have
I did.
So you had to make another one.
I did. Again, like I did my demo, I can't remember, it was maybe like 2014 or so.
Yeah.
And I was happy just because I had a demo and I
No,
sent it out to
relate
people.
to this.
And, you get some opportunities with respects to like an agent will finally look at you, but you don't really go that far. And again, with some of the agencies, it can be very sticky because some of them, they want you to be SAG.
Established, yeah.
Some of them, they want you to have credits, or some of them, so it's where do you fit in all that? And, getting SAG eligible.
Can you talk about how you got SAG eligible?
I did background work.
Oh.
I did background work.
During doing all this, so you were studying voiceover and then you were doing background work? Or
Yeah, in my eyes, it's a little difficult getting those SAG vouchers or getting a union job when you don't have an agent.
Yeah.
When, you don't
it's
really
a catch-22.
It's this weird dynamic. It's a catch-22 where it's like, how do I get the work? I need to get the work, but how do I get it? And it's like, where do you go from there?
Yeah.
And so it's hard. And again, starting off is probably the hardest stage in a voice actor's career.
Yeah.
Trying to get that traction and all that stuff. And I did background work, and that's how I was able to get my vouchers and became SAG eligible. And so there were certain agencies that, that said to me, "We like you, but because you're not SAG eligible, we can't look at you.
Wow.
We don't want to look at." And so now that I was eligible, it's like, "Hey, come on in. We'll bring you in for a meeting. We'll bring you in to read for us. We want to hear what." So again, there are certain like little benchmarks that you need to pass.
Yeah.
And again, because I didn't have that roadmap, because I didn't know, sometimes it can cost up a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of
Oh yeah. Demos in and of itself, like for a good one, you're
Oh my
paying
God.
like $2,000 at this point.
Well, and also consider like if it's not a good demo.
Oh, it's going to be bad for you in the future because
Yeah.
you'll remember that possibly.
Well, and the way I look at it is, you want to be able to look at whatever work that you did 5-6 years ago and be able to say, "Hey, I'm better than that now."
Yeah.
So, you kind of always have to constantly be updating your demos and redo them, every year or 2 years or however long. Again, it's like you want to be able to say, "I'm better than that." That's not an accurate reflection of the work that I am currently capable of doing.
Yes.
So, always good to kind of just have this gauge and self-reflection where, where am I at? What am I doing?
Nice.
And yeah, I mean that opened up some doors getting SAG eligible. Joined probably about 2 years ago. Finally joined. I was must join at that point.
Okay.
And we did it, and it was great, and things are starting to take off again. It just sort of it takes momentum.
Yes.
There's no such thing as overnight success.
Even though your career sounds like it, going from zero to Zelda, in a sense, it's kind of like there was a lot of steps in between that people didn't know.
There's so much work that goes into it, and gosh, so many nights of staying up late for classes. A lot of early morning auditions, driving around.
No place is in the same area.
No,
it's always
no. You got to get a comfy car, get something with a lot of leg room, a lot of headroom. Make sure you have lots of podcasts to listen to, and just.
Do you listen to like voiceover specific podcasts or like just kind of stuff to get your mind at ease and not in?
I do listen to some things every now and then. I used to, when Rob Paulson was doing the Talkin' Tunes podcast, he would do it over at the Hollywood Improv.
Yeah.
You went, I went, a lot of people went. It was a great just atmosphere to, and being
Connect
there,
with people,
being there
meet
live.
people.
Yeah. God, that was so much fun. I know now he does his stuff with Nerdist and he does it in the studio and everything. And, that's fine. But man, it's great to be able to get like this gathering of, 30, 40, 50 different voice actors and get us all together in a bar. We're, drinking and, just having laughs and enjoying the environment.
Nice.
Yeah.
So then I guess like for my one last question
Sure.
is, so, okay, let's say you had a piece of copy and it's for a character. When you're looking at the scene, like let's say it's like a battle and your character is about to go out to war. Now, you've never been into war, I assume. How do you kind of put yourself in the battlefield? Is this all built off of imagination in your head? Is this something that you're substituting like, oh, I can get this feeling from another instance in my life where I can kind of put that there? Is this how do you kind of construct this?
It's all of those things. I mean, as Richard Horvitz would say, you use your imagination, you play pretend, you go into that secondary reality.
Yeah.
And you have to think, this character that you're talking about in this audition, is this somebody that's been in battle before? Have they never been in battle before? And so those are the different like little nuances that you have to approach and you start off from, and then, you kind of arrive to what.
So you build a whole backstory
You
before you
have
even
to.
record.
It helps. Having that context, it definitely is a nice place to sort of build and start upon. And then you can draw upon your own experiences of like, gosh, when have I ever been nervous? And, have I ever been in an experience where it's like, gosh, I'm, maybe even in a sense of danger, and you try and tap into those moments and you, again, mush it together. You try and weave it together as much as you can. And going back to, understanding the project. Is it something that's very cartoonish? Is it something that's real, grounded? Again, those are the different things that you kind of have to try and mold with your character with respects to how you approach your mic work.
I'm curious, when you do find out that you've booked something, I've heard differing opinions from people.
Okay.
With the job that you find out that you booked, were you like, oh yeah, I killed that audition, I knew it? Or was it like, whoa, wait, I got that? Or is it a mix of the two? I'm curious. Have you ever had like that? Yeah?
It's never a science.
Yeah.
It is never a science because, there are things where it's like, yeah, like you said, I auditioned for that. Like, really? I don't even remember that. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes you hear things back like 2 or 3 weeks later and you've already sort of moved on, because to hold on to certain auditions
Mm-hmm.
is like such torture.
Yes.
It's painful to kind of like get attached to
The idea of something.
the idea of something, and so you get emotionally invested right before you do the audition.
Yeah.
While you're doing the audition, you listen to your playback and all that stuff, and you make whatever adjustments that you need to make, and then once the audition is done, you kind of need to almost detach from whatever project in order to sort of like maintain a level of sanity
Yes.
and like healthy emotional space.
Was that something that you just learned over time, just there's doing it
Yes.
so much repetition?
When I first started off, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, the auditions weren't as plentiful.
Mhm.
So you might get one audition a week, and so you like focus so
So
much
hard.
on that one
Mhm.
audition. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, whereas there's other voice actors that
They're
you
just
get, it's just another Tuesday for them.
Yep.
But it's like and you audition for it, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is my little baby, and I care so much about it, and it's like, oh my gosh, and then you don't hear anything back,
Mhm.
and it's like, oh gosh, I really wanted that one. And so, as time progresses and as more auditions come in, you kind of just learn to not get too emotionally attached after the audition is done, because really what we do is completely absurd. It's crazy. You kind of have to be a little messed up in the head.
Well, acting in general, I think.
Acting in general, but also like when you think about it, like the volume of rejection that we face on a daily basis. You could be doing 5, 10, 15, however many auditions that you do in a given day. You probably won't book them all.
Yeah.
I can almost guarantee you're not going to book them all. You'll be lucky if you get a call back on once a
of 'em.
week or something like that.
Yeah.
So again, it's just so weird that you kind of have to like have this like mental and emotional armor
Of detachment.
detachment,
Yeah.
but you also have to have a certain level of investment because it's like, hey, I want to do my best work. I want to put my best foot
Oh, yeah.
forward. I want to book this
You
job.
can't be
I want to do it.
apathetic.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
So it's weird. And you again, it's like it's almost torture because you're doing it and you're happy when the bookings and the callbacks do come in.
Yeah. The job itself is the audition.
Absolutely. You hear it all the time.
Yeah.
That is your job to do the audition and the work, the sessions, all that stuff. That's just a byproduct of it.
I'm curious, with really important auditions to you, do you hire a coach to coach you with that, or like ever?
There have been times where I've you reach out to friends
Yeah.
or people. It's like, hey, can you give us a listen?
Yeah.
What do you think? Just get and it's
Are
always.
you doing that out of like you think it's really, really good, or you think there is something off and you think they might be able to illuminate it?
Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with having an extra set of ears to listen to your work. Like
Yes.
I said, I have my good habits and I also have my bad habits. And so it's great if you can have like somebody independent, outside of you that just give it that listen. It's like, again, they might hear something that you don't.
They're like,
So-
hey, it's a little sing-songy here,
Yeah.
or something.
Or maybe try this, or maybe have you thought about like doing, and it's like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even think about that.
Nice.
Can do wonders for whatever audition that you're trying to do.
It's always good. I mean, and I think that's the thing with the voiceover community in and of itself is everybody is super supportive of each
Yeah.
other, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean everybody's so kind, everybody's so giving, and you hear about it a lot where sometimes an audition will come in or something, some sort of an opportunity, and it's like I don't know if I'm right for that. Who would be a good fit for that? So and so. Oh,
Mhm.
and
Oh, yeah.
and I can tell you I've benefited from people that have been like, you know what, hey, maybe bring Joe in for this, or maybe, and you try to pay it forward too, where it's like, oh, you know what, hey, you need some more male voice talent, or you need a female. Hey, I know somebody that could do this, or and again, it's kind of on a case by case basis with respects to what is the project.
Yes.
And who is this person? What are their strengths? Would it play to that? And so, again, you just kind of, it's like, oh, you're looking for somebody that can speak French, or somebody that knows Cambodian, or, it's like, hey, I know somebody. And so again, it just helps to know, like, oh my gosh, there's somebody I know that can do that, that can go there. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I've learned a lot from you today. This has been wonderful. I hope you guys have garnered something from this as well. Again, I would like to thank Soundbox Studio Group. Check out their website. It's wonderful. I'm going to put their link right here so you can go there, see if you need actor services, booking sessions. I believe they even can refer you to a good demo production group, among other things. Tim is wonderful. They have an adorable studio dog, Cho, and many other things. I would like to thank Joe again for being here today.
Thanks, guys.
And if you guys liked this podcast, feel free to check him out on social media. It would be
at Joe Hernandez VO.
And I'm Christy Kate, and this is Inside the Voice Actors Booth. Have a great day, guys.
Bye, guys.